It's a racetrack. It's a public toll road. It's a death trap. This can only describe one place in the world. The green hell of the Nurburgring. Yes, there are a lot of German pronunciations in this. No, I'm not gonna get them right. The Allgemeiner Deutscher Automobilclub was founded in 1903 to organize some of Germany's first motor races. And in 1907 they held the first ever Eifelrennen race in the Eifel Mountains range of Germany on the 73-mile-long Taunus racetrack. 73 miles. That is twice as long as the Isles of Man. That makes Spa and the current Nurburgring look like Bristol. I can't imagine a lap time for that thing in 1907. Now, for the drivers who were afraid of such a long course, they didn't have to worry for too long because Germany got caught up in, the Great War, and that put an end to motor racing till the 1920s. But even after they ended the First World War, there was a problem. The 20.6-mile-long Niggen road circuit was too dangerous even by 1920 standards. So the decision was made to open a purpose-built racetrack in the area in 1925. And the Germans, well, they went big or they went home, and well, they weren't going home, so they decided to build a circuit so large it could circle the entire town of Nurburgring inside of its lap. That's insane. It was a 17.6 mile, 174 turn beast with no barriers or safety features at all. And 2 years after the concept was given the green light, on June 18th, the first race was held with motorcycle sidecars, and it was won by German rider Tony Ullmann on a Velocette motorbike from England. And the next day, the first car race was won by Rudolf Caracolia in his Mercedes, becoming the first ever Ringmeister. Now, the full Gessemestrecker held its last race in 1929 when Bugatti driver Louis Turon, yes, that is the guy who they named the Turon after, set a lap record of just over 15 minutes in his Type 35-C. But it wasn't just a racing driver's track. Sure, they had the track record and they had all the fancy races, but it was not just for the rich guys on their open-wheelers. In order to pay for the construction and to give everybody access to the height of German engineering pride, anybody could drive on the track if you paid them some money. Each evening, or any time on the weekend, you could pay a toll and drive around the longest, most dangerous racetrack in the world. At least until Hitler showed up. Man, that guy just ruins everything, doesn't he? The Nazis used the ring for military purposes, and that meant the Allies had a problem with its existence and made sure to rectify that with a lot of explosives. And when they won the war, the German reconstruction focused on more important things than racing, like a stable government and denazification, which means that racing didn't resume until 1947. And when it did, the track was split into two. The 4.8-mile South Loop, Südenschleife, for motorcycles, and the 14.7-mile-long North Loop, or Nordschleife. In 1951, it became home of the German Grand Prix in their brand new Formula One calendar. And just 2 years after that, the 1,000 kilometers of Nürburgring joined it as well. It quickly became a fan-favorite track, with crucial moments for motorsport being decided there. Phil Hill became the first person to ever lap the ring in under 9 minutes with his 1961 Ferrari 156. and Jim Clark secured his second world championship with a win at the 1965 German Grand Prix, but at the same time it was becoming a favorite, it was becoming a nightmare. The sheer length made it difficult to staff, so safety crew response time, which was abysmal, just flat out back then, was impossible, non-existent at the ring. And then setting up a car was also very difficult, since it could be sunny on one section of the track and pouring with rain on another. Then there was the fact that there were multiple jumps for the Formula 1 cars to deal with, and I don't know if you've seen a Formula 1 car, they're very low and very fragile. All of this, combined with the thick fog and thunderstorms that frequently rolled through, meant that when Jackie Stewart won his race in 1968, he gave it the nickname the Green Hell. And over the years, a confirmed 78 fatalities have occurred on the track during races or practice sessions, with an incalculable number of civilians dying on public track days. In 2008, it was estimated that between 3 and 12 drivers each year die at the ring. It was so bad that in 1970 the drivers boycotted the event to protest lack of safety, and the German Grand Prix had to be moved to Hockenheimring. And it worked. After the successful boycott, changes were made, chicanes were added, jumps were smoothed out, corners were removed, and a fast-acting Porsche 911 response vehicle was included. It seemed to solve all of the problems. They even added another 24-hour touring car race in 1970. But there was a big elephant in the room. The new era of F1 cars was a dramatic increase in performance from the 60s, which meant that the safer Nurburgring was just a facade. And as speeds increased, so did the danger. In 1975, Niki Lauda became the only person in history to lap the full original Nordschleife in under 7 minutes. The track was still very dangerous and everybody knew it, so it was decided that the 1976 German Grand Prix would be the last one held at the full Nürburgring. Which means the danger would finally be over with. Hooray! Luckily, Lauda was saved by his fellow drivers who stopped to help, because the fire crews only reached him after he was out of the car. Despite being in toxic fire and fumes for almost a minute, Lauda made a full recovery just 42 days later. The Nürburgring, not so much. Quite simply put it, F1 could not race at the Nordschleife, so the owners of the ring built the GP Strecke in 1984, and it was christened with one hell of an opening ceremony. It was a one-make race with Mercedes 190Es and famous Formula 1 drivers. It was just pure raw skill, the best of the best, same car, same track, same conditions, winner takes all. And these were some legends: Niki Lauda, James Hunt, Jack Brabham, Sterling Moss, John Surtees, just to name a few. And the thing was won by Ayrton Senna, if you were curious. And it brought more racing to the Nürburgring, that is for sure. F1 showed up on and off, as well as DTM and sports car racing, and truck racing, which is apparently a crowd favorite. The Nordschleife also got a revamp at the same time, cutting the lap down to just under 13 miles. Just like how the original Nürburgring kept itself financially solvent by operating as a toll road that anybody could use for a fee, the new Nürburgring boosted funding by setting aside 18 weeks a year to lease out to manufacturers for R&D testing. And it makes sense. The ring has pretty much every type of kink, corner, straightaway, bump you could ever need for performance R&Ds. It started in the early 80s with BMW and Porsche and Audi running around, setting up their suspension, fine-tuning their chassis, and it has only expanded from there. And these automakers began keeping track of their lap times, and it fixated the auto industry fan base ever since, whether it be the fascination of the Nürburgring with the Roof CTR Yellowbird, or the 918's 3-year-long record of being the fastest car on the ring, people are intoxicated by Nurburgring records. I mean, in the last 5 years alone, Lamborghini beat the 918, then Porsche beat Lamborghini with the GT2 RS, then Lamborghini struck back with the Aventador SVJ, then Mercedes butted in with the AMG GT Black, and then earlier this year, Porsche struck back again with the 911 GT2 RS MAN 3 OEM kit, which is a mouthful and a half, but it set a scarcely believable 6-minute, 38.8 second lap, which is only 30 seconds off the outright electric record held by the IDR Volkswagen race car. Now, granted, none of those hold a candle to the outright record. During the 1983 1,000 kilometers of the Nurburgring, Stefan Belov qualified pole with a 6-minute, 11.1 second lap from his Porsche 956. A record that would stand for 35 years. It took 6 minutes, 11 seconds to cover 13 miles. And it's not a straight line. That's ridiculous. And when that record was finally beaten, it was Porsche once again. Timo Bernhard and his unrestricted 919 LMP1 Evo. This is a 1,200 horsepower all-wheel drive hybrid monster. You took an LMP1 car, the fastest closed-wheel circuit racer in the world, de-restricted all the rules, put on a crazy wing, even crazier underside aerodynamics, a whole lot more horsepower, and a crazy curve system, and you get a lap time around the 12.7 mile circuits of 5 minutes, 19.55 seconds. Look at this time, which I have links to in the description for these two videos. On the left is the current record holder, the 911 GT2 RS. On the right is the 919 Evo. It's like looking at a Yugo versus an Indy car. That's insane that can even exist. It looks like it's sped up. I promise you it's not, but it looks like it is. I'm gushing over it, but it's seriously an incredible feat of technology and bravery and skill at driver. Good God. The Group B drivers of old said that they were getting tunnel vision from the crazy speeds they were getting on the forests back then. I can't imagine the tunnel vision that poor sod was getting. Now, your car is definitely not as fast as the Evo, but you can still race at the ring. So if you look at the ring today, well, it's still open. It was recently bought by a Russian billionaire. It went bankrupt because it's expensive maintaining such a large track, technically 2 tracks, pretty much. So they've had to continue with their open public track days, despite the multiple deaths every year. Now, the reason why they're still allowed to continue despite the deaths is because they operate under a waiver system of you race at your own risk, physically and financially. Because if you crash, not only do you crash your car, you also pay any medical fees, towing services, track damage, and lost track time, which is many thousands of dollars. If you don't want to pay any of that because that terrifies you and your wallet, you can rent a car. They have a whole fleet at the ring, and you can get track insurance so you don't have to pay too much. But if you don't want to pay anything like that and you want to be safe, you can get a professional driver to run you around the ring in the famous ring taxi. And if you were really lucky, you would be in the taxi with Sabine Schmidt. Sabine Schmidt was the queen of the ring. She won the N24 twice outright in 95 and 96, and she estimates that she has driven over 20,000 laps of the Nordschleife, ranging from BMW M3s to transit vans. Yeah, most famously, she's the one who took up Top Gear's challenge and raced a bone stock 4-transit diesel around the ring in just over 10 minutes for a Top Gear challenge. And fun fact, that set the outright van record until 2016. There you go. Sadly, though, the reason why I'm talking about her in the past tense is that she tragically passed away from cancer at the age of 51. But the ring has made a point to honor her by naming some corners after her on the track. And she still stands as one of the greatest drivers to ever conquer the ring. She may have never driven a Formula One car, but I would argue, certainly on Nurburgring, she is right up there with the likes of Fangio and Niki Lauda as one of the few to have tamed the ring, the Nordschleife, and the Green Hell.